Ambassador Veltar walked slowly through the crystal halls of the Imperial Command Center. His tall, blue-skinned frame moved with the careful dignity that all Zephyrians learned from birth. Today felt different from other days. Today he would receive news about a new species. The Empire had been expanding for 3,000 years. Every few decades, the survey ships would find another world with intelligent life. The process was always the same. First came the scientists to study them. Then came the diplomats to classify them. Finally came the fleets to bring them into the Empire. Veltar's office overlooked the capital city of Zephyria Prime. Massive towers reached toward the purple sky. Flying vehicles moved in perfect formations between the buildings. Everything was ordered. Everything was controlled. This was how civilization should look. A soft chime told him his assistant had arrived. Colvin entered the office carrying a data tablet. The younger Zephyrian scales were still bright with youth, unlike Veltar's which had dulled to a mature gray-blue. The survey report from Sector 7749 has arrived, Ambassador, Colvin said. He placed the tablet on the desk. The new species has been classified. Veltar picked up the tablet and began reading. The species called themselves humans. They lived on a small blue planet they named Earth. The initial scans showed they had only recently discovered faster-than-light travel. Their ships were crude metal constructions powered by simple fusion reactors. Their weapons used chemical explosives and basic energy beams. Interesting, Veltar murmured. He scrolled through more data. These humans had no psychic abilities at all. They could not read minds or move objects with thought like the higher species. They did not even seem to understand that such things were possible. The biological scans were equally unremarkable. Humans were small compared to most imperial species. They had only 2 eyes, 2 arms, and 2 legs. Their skin was soft and easily damaged. They needed to breathe a specific mixture of gases to survive. They would die quickly in most imperial environments without protection. What classification did the council assign? Veltar asked. Colvin consulted his own tablet. Tier 7 Ambassador. Minimal threat level. The report suggests they could serve as laborers in the outer colonies. Their small size might make them useful for maintenance work in tight spaces. Veltar nodded. This was expected. Most new species received similar classifications. The Empire had discovered hundreds of intelligent species over the millennia. Very few ever rose above Tier 5. Only the 12 founding races of the Empire held Tier 1 status. He continued reading the report. The humans seemed to have divided their single planet into many small territories. They fought constant wars among themselves over resources and territory. This was another mark against them. Civilized species learned to work together for the common good. The cultural analysis was particularly damning. Humans apparently valued something they called individual freedom above social order. They resisted authority and questioned their leaders constantly. Many human societies allowed their citizens to choose their own occupations and places of residence. Such chaos would never be tolerated in imperial space. They sound primitive, Colvin observed, reading over Veltar's shoulder. Very primitive, Veltar agreed. Look at this. They still use physical currency in many regions. They have not learned to trust their governments to provide for all their needs. They actually compete with each other for jobs and resources instead of accepting assigned roles. The military analysis was brief. Human weapons were thousands of years behind imperial technology. Their largest ships were smaller than imperial courier vessels. Their armies fought with handheld weapons that would barely scratch imperial armor. The report estimated that a single imperial destroyer could conquer their entire planet within days. Veltar scrolled to the final section of the report. Standard Protocol 7 had been approved. A small subjugation fleet would be dispatched to bring the humans into imperial service. Fleet Captain Kael'Ris had been assigned to command the operation. It was considered a routine mission, suitable for a junior officer looking to advance his career. When will first contact occur? Veltar asked. The fleet departed yesterday, Colvin replied. They should reach human space within 2 weeks. Captain Kael'Ris estimates the entire operation will take less than a month. Veltar set down the tablet and walked to the window. In the distance, he could see the massive shipyards where imperial vessels were constructed. Thousands of beings from dozens of species worked together in perfect harmony. Corvin workers lifted heavy materials with their powerful arms. Theshan technicians used their delicate fingers to install complex circuits. Valdari supervisors used their advanced minds to coordinate the work. This was the strength of the Empire. Every species contributed according to their abilities. Every being had a place and purpose. The strong ruled and the weak served. It had worked for 3,000 years. Soon the humans would learn their place in this great system. They would contribute their labor and accept imperial guidance. Their chaotic societies would be replaced with ordered imperial administration. Their primitive technologies would be supplemented with imperial science. It was always the same with new species. First came resistance. Then came understanding. Finally came acceptance and gratitude. Within a generation, most species forgot they had ever been independent. Their children grew up as imperial citizens, proud to serve the greater good. Veltar returned to his desk and began preparing the integration documents. The humans would need housing assignments, work quotas, and education programs. Their planet would require imperial governors and security forces. It was routine work but important. He never imagined that he was documenting the beginning of the Empire's greatest crisis. The small blue planet in Sector 7749 would soon change everything. Captain Kael'ris stepped off his shuttle onto the human space station. The corridors were narrow and poorly lit compared to Imperial standards. The walls were made of simple metal instead of the crystal composites used in proper construction. Everything looked rushed and temporary. His 4 eyes scanned the waiting area where the human delegation had gathered. They were even smaller than the reports had suggested. The tallest human barely reached his chest. Their skin looked pale and fragile. Most had dark hair covering the tops of their heads in strange patterns. "Primitive," muttered Commander Yextal, his second in command. "Look at their clothing. Simple fabric instead of adaptive materials. They cannot even regulate their body temperature properly." Kael'ris activated his translator device and approached the humans. The delegation consisted of about 20 individuals, both male and female. They stood in a loose group rather than the formal ranks that proper diplomacy required. Their leader appeared to be a young woman with short black hair and brown eyes. "I am Captain Kael'ris of the Zephyrian Imperial Fleet," he announced. His voice echoed through the translator in several human languages. "I represent the Galactic Empire and bring greetings from the Council of 12. The woman stepped forward. "I am President Hannah of the United Earth Defense Council. We welcome you to our system, Captain." Kael'ris was surprised by her calm tone. Most primitive species showed fear or awe when first meeting Imperial representatives. This human seemed merely polite, as if meeting equals rather than superiors. "President Hannah," he replied, "I bring terms for your species' integration into the Empire. These terms are generous and have been approved by the High Council itself." He activated a holographic display that showed the standard integration contract. "The Empire will provide protection, technology, and guidance to your species. In return, you will contribute 30% of your population for Imperial service and 30% of your planetary resources as tribute." The humans looked at each other. Some whispered in their various languages. Kael'ris waited patiently. This was normal. Primitive species needed time to understand the honor being offered to them. A human male with gray hair stepped beside President Hannah. "I am General Jiho, military advisor to the Council. We have reviewed your terms, Captain. Our answer is no." Kael'ris blinked all 4 eyes in confusion. "I do not understand." Perhaps the translation was incorrect. "The translation was perfect," President Hannah said. "We decline your offer. We choose to remain independent." "That is not possible," Kael'ris replied. "Integration is not optional. All species must contribute to the greater good of the Empire." General Jiho crossed his arms. "We have studied your Empire, Captain. We intercepted your communications years ago. We know how you treat the species under your control. We will not become your slaves." Kael'ris felt a strange sensation he had never experienced before. These tiny primitive beings were refusing the Empire. It was unthinkable. No species had ever rejected integration. "You do not understand the consequences of refusal," he said carefully. "The Empire maintains order throughout the galaxy. Without our protection, you will face chaos and destruction." "We prefer chaos to slavery," President Hannah replied. Commander Yextal stepped forward aggressively. "You speak of matters beyond your understanding, human. Your entire species could not resist a single Imperial destroyer." "You are probably right," General Jiho agreed. "But we will try anyway." Kael'ris decided to demonstrate Imperial power. Perhaps these humans simply did not understand what they faced. He activated his personal communicator and contacted his flagship in orbit. "Target the uninhabited satellite orbiting the 4th planet," he ordered. Full plasma bombardment. The humans watched through the station's viewports as brilliant beams of energy lanced down from orbit. In seconds, one of their system's moons vanished in a ball of superheated gas. The display of power was impressive even by Imperial standards. Kael'Ris turned back to the human delegation, expecting to see fear and submission. Instead, he found the same calm determination as before. "Impressive," President Hanna said quietly. "You can destroy our worlds. You can kill us all. But you cannot make us serve willingly." "Willing service is not required," Kael'Ris replied, his patience wearing thin. "Obedience is." "Then you will have to kill every single one of us," General Jiho said. "Because we will never stop fighting." Something in the human's voice made Kael'Ris pause. He had conducted dozens of first contact missions. Species always negotiated after a show of force. They asked for better terms or more time to prepare. They never simply refused to discuss surrender. "Your resistance will accomplish nothing but needless death," he tried again. "The Empire has conquered thousands of worlds. Your weapons cannot harm our ships. Your soldiers cannot match our technology." President Hanna stepped closer to him. Despite her small size, she somehow seemed to be looking down at him. "Captain, let me tell you something about humans. We have spent our entire history fighting impossible odds. We have fought storms that could destroy mountains. We have fought diseases that killed millions. We have fought each other when there was nothing else to fight." She paused and looked directly into his primary eyes. "What we have never done is surrendered our freedom willingly. You can take our lives, but you cannot take our choice to resist." Kael'Ris felt another unfamiliar sensation. For the first time in his military career, he was uncertain. These humans spoke of concepts he did not understand. Freedom and choice were meaningless compared to order and security. "You have 1 day to reconsider," he announced. "Tomorrow we begin integration procedures whether you cooperate or not." As he walked back to his shuttle, Kael'Ris heard President Hanna call out behind him. "Captain, when you return tomorrow, you should know that every human in this system has volunteered to fight. Every single one." Back on his flagship, Kael'Ris stared at the tactical displays showing human activity throughout their system. Instead of preparing surrender documents, they were mobilizing their entire civilization for war. It made no sense. Admiral Zonthek stared at the casualty reports on his desk. The numbers made no sense. What should have been a simple 3-month operation had dragged on for 2 full years. His fleet had lost more ships fighting these primitive humans than in the last century of Imperial expansion. "Explain this to me again," he said to his intelligence officer. "How did we lose the destroyer Kelvones?" Commander Thelvar shifted uncomfortably. "A human mining vessel rammed it, Admiral. The ship was filled with nuclear explosives. The impact destroyed both vessels completely." "A mining ship destroyed an Imperial destroyer?" "Yes, Admiral. The humans have been converting civilian craft into weapons. Cargo haulers become missile platforms. Passenger ships become troop transports. Even their small personal vehicles have been weaponized." Zonthek rubbed his temples. In all his years of military service, he had never encountered anything like this. Normal species fought with proper armies using standard tactics. They held territory and defended strategic positions. When defeated, they surrendered. The humans did none of these things. "What about ground operations?" he asked. "Worse, Admiral. When we destroyed their major cities, they simply moved underground. They have built tunnel networks beneath every populated area. Our ground forces control the surface, but the humans control everything below." The report continued with more impossible details. Human soldiers used captured Imperial weapons against their former owners. They studied destroyed Imperial equipment and learned to build copies. They even hacked Imperial communication networks to steal tactical information. On the planet's surface, Major Miho crawled through the underground tunnels beneath what used to be Sol. The city above was nothing but rubble now, destroyed by Imperial bombardment. But down here the resistance continued. His squad moved quietly through the maintenance passages. They carried a mixture of human and alien weapons. The Imperial plasma rifles were more powerful, but they ran out of energy quickly. The old human assault rifles were weaker but more reliable. "Contact ahead," whispered Corporal Sujin. She had been a college student before the war. Now she was one of their best scouts. Miho peered around the corner. An Imperial patrol was moving through the intersection. 6 tall aliens in advanced armor, carrying weapons that could cut through steel. 2 years ago, seeing them would have meant certain death. Now it meant opportunity. Miho signaled his squad. They had practiced this ambush 100 times. Sujin would create a distraction. Private Dong Hyun would attack from the left. Sergeant Young Soo would provide covering fire. Miho would go for the squad leader. The attack lasted 30 seconds. When it was over, 6 Imperial soldiers lay dead and the humans had captured their weapons and equipment. It was a small victory, but small victories added up. Any casualties? Miho asked. Dong Hyun took a graze on his arm, Sujin reported. Nothing serious. They gathered the alien weapons and began moving toward their next objective. Imperial communication equipment was always valuable. The resistance could use it to monitor enemy movements and coordinate their own attacks. As they moved through the tunnels, Miho's radio crackled with reports from other sectors. The Mars colonies had repelled another Imperial landing attempt. The asteroid miners were conducting hit-and-run attacks on supply convoys. The lunar bases were launching missile strikes against Imperial ships. Everywhere humans existed, they fought. But the most interesting reports came from intercepted alien communications. Other species throughout the Empire were beginning to notice the human resistance. The Corvan mining slaves whispered about the warriors who refused to surrender. The Theshan agricultural workers quietly celebrated each human victory. On Thesha Prime, young Dian listened to the illegal broadcast with growing excitement. The humans had found a way to transmit messages across the Empire's communication networks. They shared technical information about Imperial weaknesses. They taught other species how to build weapons from common materials. Most importantly, they shared something the Empire had tried to destroy. Oh, the mining equipment can be converted, the human voice explained through the hidden speakers. Remove the safety systems and redirect the power cells. A single excavator can become a powerful weapon. Dian looked around the agricultural facility where he worked. Thousands of Theshans tended the crops that fed Imperial worlds. They were considered valuable because of their skill with growing things. They were also considered harmless. The Empire was wrong about that too. Within days, Theshan uprisings began on a dozen worlds. Agricultural equipment became weapons of war. Crop transportation vehicles became troop transports. Food processing centers became weapon factories. The pattern spread to other species. Corvan miners used their heavy machinery to attack Imperial facilities. Valdari researchers sabotaged Imperial technology projects. Species that had served the Empire for centuries suddenly remembered what rebellion felt like. Admiral Zonthek received the reports with growing alarm. The human conflict had spread to 17 different systems. Imperial resources were being stretched thin trying to contain multiple simultaneous uprisings. How did this happen? He demanded of his staff. These species have been loyal for generations. What changed? The humans, Admiral, replied his intelligence chief. They have been sharing information across the Empire's networks, teaching other species how to fight. More importantly, they have been sharing their philosophy. Philosophy? The idea that freedom is worth dying for, Admiral. The concept that beings should choose their own destiny rather than accept assigned roles. These are dangerous thoughts. Zonthek studied the tactical displays showing rebel activity across Imperial space. Red markers indicated human positions, still fighting after 2 years of bombardment. Yellow markers showed other species in open revolt. Green markers represented loyal Imperial forces, and there were fewer of them every day. For the first time in his career, Admiral Zonthek began to wonder if the Empire might lose a war. The humans had done something impossible. They had turned a simple integration mission into a galactic revolution. Worse, they seemed to be winning. Fleet Admiral Vexandra stood before the emergency session of the Galactic Council. The great chamber that had once symbolized Imperial power now felt cold and empty. Half the seats were vacant. Representatives from dozens of worlds had simply stopped attending. The holographic display behind her showed the current state of Imperial space. Red zones indicated active rebellion. Yellow zones showed worlds with suspected resistance movements. Green zones represented territories still under full Imperial control. The amount of green had shrunk dramatically. Honored Council members, she began, the situation has deteriorated beyond our worst projections. What began as a simple integration of one primitive species has become a galaxy-wide crisis. Council member Zarthal leaned forward in his floating chair. His ancient face showed deep concern. Explain how one backward planet has caused such chaos, Admiral. The humans have proven more resourceful than anticipated, Vexandra replied carefully. But the real problem is not their military capabilities. It is their ideas. She activated a new display showing intercepted communications. The humans have been broadcasting across hidden networks throughout Imperial space. They share technical knowledge about our weaknesses. They teach other species how to convert civilian equipment into weapons. Most dangerously, they spread concepts that threaten the foundation of Imperial order. What concepts? Asked Council member Yixenda. freedom, self-determination, the right to choose one's own path rather than accept assigned roles. These ideas have infected dozens of species. On Thesha Prime, Dean crouched in the underground meeting chamber with 50 other rebels. The room was hidden beneath an agricultural processing plant. Above them, Imperial forces patrolled the streets, searching for signs of resistance. "The human broadcast will begin soon," whispered Minji, a young Theshan who had learned to operate the illegal communication equipment. She adjusted the hidden antenna and began scanning for the secret frequency. Static filled the chamber. Then a clear human voice came through the speakers. "This is Commander Borum of the Human Resistance Network. Today's lesson covers improvised explosives using common fertilizer compounds." Dean listened carefully as the human explained how to create powerful bombs from agricultural chemicals. The techniques were simple but effective. More importantly, they were designed to work with materials found on any farming world. The broadcast continued with tactical advice about conducting guerrilla operations, how to strike Imperial targets and disappear before reinforcements arrived, how to coordinate multiple attacks across wide areas, how to inspire others to join the resistance. But the most powerful part of each broadcast came at the end, when the humans shared their philosophy. "Remember," Commander Borum's voice said, "you are not fighting for territory or resources. You are fighting for the right to control your own destiny. Every being deserves to choose their own path. Every species deserves freedom." These words meant more to Dean than any weapon design. For generations, his people had been told that their role was to grow food for Imperial worlds. They had been taught that questioning this assignment was selfish and dangerous. The humans taught them something different. They taught them that asking why was not selfish. It was necessary. Within hours of the broadcast, Theshan rebels struck Imperial facilities across 12 worlds. Agricultural equipment became weapons of war. Food distribution centers became command posts. The species known for growing things learned to grow revolution instead. The same pattern repeated throughout Imperial space. On Corvin mining worlds, heavy machinery attacked Imperial installations. On Valdari research stations, scientists sabotaged Imperial technology projects. Species that had served the Empire for centuries suddenly refused to continue serving. Admiral Vexandra received casualty reports from 17 different systems. Imperial forces were being overwhelmed by sheer numbers. The rebels fought with captured weapons and improvised equipment, but they had something the Empire had forgotten. They believed in their cause. "The psychological impact cannot be understated," she reported to the Council. "Our forces are trained to maintain order among peaceful populations. They are not prepared for total warfare against entire civilizations." "What do you recommend?" asked Council member Zarthal. "We need to end the human resistance quickly," Vexandra replied. "They are the source of this rebellion. Without their leadership and inspiration, the other species will return to compliance." "How many ships do you require?" "The entire First Fleet," Council member. "Every capital ship, every destroyer, every fighter. We must crush the humans completely and make an example that will terrify other species back into submission." The Council approved her request. Within days, the most powerful military force in galactic history began moving toward human space. Nearly 1,000 Imperial warships, supported by millions of soldiers and the most advanced weapons known to science. But as the First Fleet traveled toward Earth, something unprecedented was happening. The human resistance broadcasts reached species throughout the galaxy. Instead of being intimidated by Imperial power, more worlds declared independence. Captain Seekjin stood on the bridge of the captured Imperial cruiser Defiance. 6 months ago, he had been a human merchant captain flying cargo runs between Mars and the asteroid belt. Now he commanded a joint species fleet of rebels that included humans, Theshans, Corvins, and even some Zephyrians who had chosen freedom over empire. "Admiral," his Corvin tactical officer reported, "long-range sensors detect the Imperial First Fleet approaching our position." Seekjin nodded. This was the moment they had prepared for. The Empire's greatest military force was coming to destroy the rebellion. If they won here, the revolution would spread across the galaxy. If they lost, every free world would fall back under Imperial control. "Signal all ships," he ordered. "Prepare for battle. Today we find out if freedom is stronger than fear." The largest battle in galactic history was about to begin. Former Ambassador Veltar walked slowly through the corridors of the new Galactic Congress Station. The walls were different from the old Imperial buildings. Instead of cold crystal, they were made from materials contributed by dozens of species. Corvin metal frameworks supported Theshan biocomposite panels. Human lighting systems illuminated Valdari artistic displays. Everything was mixed together just like the new galaxy. He paused at an observation deck and looked out at the ships docked around the station. Human vessels with their crude but effective designs flew alongside elegant Theshan bioships. Corvin heavy freighters shared space with sleek Zephyrian science vessels. All of them displayed the same symbol now, a circle of stars representing the free worlds. "Quite a view, isn't it?" a voice said behind him. Veltar turned to see President Hannah approaching. 5 years of war had changed her. Gray streaks ran through her black hair and lines marked her face. But her eyes still held the same determination that had once defied an empire. "President Hannah," he replied with a respectful nod. "Yes, it is remarkable. 5 years ago, I would never have imagined such a sight." She joined him at the viewport. "5 years ago you were trying to make us slaves." "Yes," Veltar said quietly. "The Empire made many mistakes. I made many mistakes." The battle that ended the war had been unlike anything in galactic history. The Imperial First Fleet, the most powerful military force ever assembled, had faced a ragtag collection of rebels using captured ships and improvised weapons. By every logical calculation, the Empire should have won easily. But logic had not accounted for the human factor. Captain Seekjin had commanded the rebel fleet with tactics no Imperial admiral could have predicted. Instead of meeting the Empire's ships in traditional formation, the rebels had scattered and attacked from all directions. Human fighters had rammed Imperial capital ships. Theshan biovessels had released swarms of living missiles. Corvin heavy cruisers had used their mining equipment to tear holes in Imperial armor. Most importantly, every rebel ship had fought to the end. No surrenders. No retreats. No negotiations. They had learned from the humans that some things were worth dying for. The Empire had won the battle but lost the war. The First Fleet was destroyed, and with it went Imperial power throughout the galaxy. World after world declared independence. The Great Caste system collapsed as species refused to accept their assigned roles. "Do you regret it?" President Hannah asked. Veltar considered the question carefully. "I regret the deaths. I regret the destruction. But I do not regret the result." Through the viewport, he could see young beings of different species working together on the station's exterior hull. A human engineer directed a team that included Theshans, Corvins, and even some Zephyrians. They were building something new together. "The Empire taught us that civilization required order," Veltar continued. "That the strong must rule the weak for the good of all. We believed that peace could only exist through control. And now?" Hannah asked. "Now I see that we were wrong. True civilization requires choice. Peace built on fear is not peace at all." They walked together toward the main assembly hall. Today's session would address trade disputes between the Corvin mining worlds and the Theshan agricultural colonies. It was the kind of problem that would have been solved by imperial decree in the old system. Now it required negotiation and compromise. The hall was filled with representatives from 43 different species. They argued loudly in dozens of languages. Translators worked frantically to keep up with the debates. It was chaotic and messy and completely unlike the ordered proceedings of the old Imperial Council. It was also democratic. "Sometimes I miss the efficiency of the old system," Veltar admitted as they found their seats. "Efficiency built on slavery," Hannah replied. "We tried that on Earth too. It never lasted." The session began with reports from various worlds. The Corvin mining colonies had exceeded production targets. The Theshan agricultural worlds were developing new crop varieties. Human research stations were working on improved space travel technology. The Valdari were exploring new scientific theories. Everything was voluntary now. Species chose their own industries and trading partners. They set their own goals and methods. Some worlds chose to focus on agriculture. Others preferred manufacturing or research. A few even chose isolation, and that choice was respected too. Order through freedom, Veltar mused. The Empire never understood that concept. "Most humans didn't either," Hannah replied. "We had to fight wars among ourselves to learn it. The hard way, like everything else we do." The afternoon brought security reports. Patrols of mixed-species fleets protected the trade routes. Former Imperial pirates had been mostly eliminated or convinced to find legitimate work. The galaxy was actually safer now than it had been under Imperial rule. "How do you explain that?" Veltar asked. "When people choose to cooperate instead of being forced to cooperate, they work harder to make it succeed," Hannah explained. "Every world has a stake in keeping the peace because every world benefits from it." As the day's session ended, Veltar made his final entry in his personal journal. The humans taught us something the Empire never understood, he wrote. True strength comes not from the ability to control others, but from the willingness to let them choose their own path. He paused and looked around the assembly hall. Representatives were still debating, still arguing, still working to solve problems together. It was loud and messy and inefficient. It was also free. The galaxy is different now, he continued writing. Louder. Messier. Less predictable. But also more alive. The humans showed us that some spirits cannot be broken, and in trying to break them, we learned that our own spirits had been sleeping. Outside the station, patrol ships from a dozen worlds moved in formation. Human vessels flew alongside their former enemies, ensuring that no single power could ever again dominate the stars. The humans had kept their promise. They had chosen death over slavery, and in doing so, had given birth to something beautiful. A galaxy where every being could choose their own destiny.